What's going on, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Expected Bets for your go-to podcast for all things hockey betting. I'm Gator Betting, and joined by, as always, we got Gretzky Betskis and Franco the Banker. How we doing, guys?
Well, how are you doing? You're the one that just got back from Europe.
Yeah, I was going to start us off with a little hola, but that's about all I picked up while in Spain. But yeah, gorgeous place. I was talking to Franco before the show, and it wasn't necessarily a place on my bucket list. Like it's not Italy or, I mean, I've been to a few other countries in Europe, but not like kind of the mainstays. But I love Spain. It was gorgeous. They didn't really love tourists. There's a few graffiti signs across the city letting you know that. I don't think they like tourists, but specifically Americans in general. So little interesting to navigate, I'll say the least. But it was a great trip. Betsky, I haven't talked to you. You were in LA, last weekend?
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
Always such a chaotic, crazy mess, but
Mayhem,
always a good time.
Mayhem.
Yeah.
Good food too.
Yeah, Franco, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. No cool travel like you guys, but yeah, just chilling here in Philly area and liking it, as usual.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to the middle of Texas next weekend, so not exactly Spain. So we'll see how that one ends up. Yeah. But all right, let's get in to the team preview for the Dallas Stars.
Speaking of Texas.
I might have to leave that in right there. That's a pretty good transition right there. All right, let's get into the team preview for the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Stars, so close to that Stanley Cup appearance, yet so far away. Back-to-back Western Cup Conference Finals appearances. Betsky, we talked about this team kind of throughout this season, and they are a powerhouse.
Yes.
I think it was last year's podcast, had below, I think, 90 points in the past 10 seasons or something crazy like that.
But there, I don't remember exactly, but I do know, I think they have never, maybe in their entire franchise history have never had a bottom 10 season. So they've always been 11th place or better. I will need to look into that, but
yeah,
I definitely know it's that they've never had a true top 5 pick. They got Heiskanen through the lotto at third overall. And it's just one of those franchises that just does everything right. I mean, I remember when they got Tyler Seguin, it felt like they just stole him from Boston. I mean, they traded Louis Eriksson was a big piece there. And say what you will about Seguin. I mean, he's been on the team ever since, and he's not quite the 1C he was before, but now it's they've transitioned this core of Seguin and Jamie Benn, who are kind of on their competitive core when, Jaromir Jagr was on the team for that brief amount of time. And they kind of did a nice little retool and now have bridged this new core of Hintz, Heiskanen, and Robertson with Seguin and Ben, and now they have this whole new core of Wyatt Johnston and Thomas Harley and Stankoven coming up. So it's 3 different groupings of players that are all making an impact on this team, that are all at different age ranges, that are kind of grouped together. And I don't think there's another team out there that can say that. I mean, a lot of teams
franchise
will have goaltender. Yes.
Yeah. They're they are loaded across the board here. Franco, they didn't make too many offseason additions. Labushkin, who's been a journeyman this past few seasons, joins the squad along with Brendan Smith, Casey DeSmith, and Hellberg. They did lose Pavelski as he retired. Scott Wedgwood is gone. Craig Smith is gone, and Hockenpot is gone as well. But this roster didn't need too many tweaks. So I think they're still pretty set.
Yeah, and we're not thinking about the loss of Tanev as well. Obviously, he went to the Leafs, so that one feels kind of like the worst loss, I guess. Pavelski kind of on the downturn. He had a really down year. It seemed like he was always rock solid. Was gonna beat Father Time, so to speak, and then last year I feel like he finally got him. So yeah, I mean, hell of a career from Pavelski. But yeah, the losses, and overall, I guess the biggest loss is Tanev there. And obviously Lyubushkin filling in for him is not what you want to see.
Not ideal.
They also brought in Dumba too. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, Dumba's in there. So I mean, I feel like he was kind of a disappointment last year. Arizona had him originally, I think, right, and then they traded him away. So, yeah, I mean, I don't love the like loss plus additions type of thing, but I feel like this team still is just so stacked. I mean, you lose Pavelski, and now you bring in Maverick Bork, who now will get some playing time. Obviously, Stankoven's going to be full time now, so yeah, it feels like a cheat code with this team how they've been able to draft so well, and like Betsky said, it's like they have this whole new generation of talent moving into the team. They extend Duchesne one more season. Who knows what he'll be in another year, but it just buys them just that much more time to like see what they have in Bork and see what they have in Stankoven if they're able to move up. And I mean, Johnston playing on that first line is in for a huge year, I feel like.
Yeah, it's it is interesting with that. I mean, the loss of Pavelski, he's there for 5 years. It's obviously going to be kind of a missing piece that they're going to need to fill. But as you mentioned before, the amount of young talent this team has feels like they can kind of easily plug and play with him. And while Sagan is kind of a shell of himself, not even that though, while he was in Boston, he's still been a productive member of this offensive unit. So it's certainly going to be interesting to see how this shapes up. But Betsky, this team seems primed for another Western Conference Stanley Cup run, not even Western Conference final. Seems primed for another Stanley Cup run, but it's like what is going to take kind of getting over that hump? It feels like they've just been stuck right there at third base for so long.
Yeah, I think it's goaltending is going to be what can elevate them and get them back to the Stanley Cup Finals, which is something they haven't done since 2019-20, which wasn't that long ago. But that was that the COVID year. That was COVID year.
Yeah. It was the bubble.
So it was like a shortened season. It was kind of weird. It was in the bubble and whatnot. But it's interesting. I don't feel like this is a team where like everything needs to go right to get to the cup. I mean, I feel like if Ottinger just has a little bit more confidence during the playoffs, this is a team that is almost borderline a shoe-in to make it from the West, at least. I mean, obviously anything can happen, but you look up and down this lineup and there's absolutely no cracks. I guess the blue line still a little one-dimensional, but with Thomas Harley kind of becoming a really good puck-moving defenseman, now they got two guys who can bring it up the ice, which seems like it was an issue before. Dumba, Daily Faceoff has projected to be playing with Heiskanen, which we'll see if that sticks, but also Dumba's kind of had some down years, and you almost feel like he's got to find a way to bounce back if he wants to keep a career in the NHL. And sometimes those types of players on good teams are just the best thing you can have happen. It's kind of like a perfect storm. I'm really glad Pavelski retired and didn't try to give it one more go, because he was slowing down, like you guys mentioned. I think there's room is better served for some of these younger players to kind of come into the roster and start to get integrated in the NHL. So it's always nice when you see kind of these beloved stars just kind of hang them up rather than kind of playing one really bad last season.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think this is top 5 team in the league for sure, as far as just roster construction. And that should be kind of the expectation here. And real quick, I did want to mention that the last time this team had a 10th or lower standings, or in the standings, was 2016-17, when they were the 24th ranked team. But other than that, this only happened 2 other times since they moved to Dallas, where they were in below 10th spot, 10th worst.
That's crazy.
So, yeah.
I think so I did want to bring this up. The Lyubushkin contract, 3 years, 9.75. Personally, like, it seems a little steep. That would be my only kind of big issue with their offseason was we've seen Lyubushkin over the past 3 to 4 years bounce around to these several teams, and it's clear that he's just kind of a liability out there at certain points, especially defensively. He takes a ton of stupid penalties, and then he's just not where he needs to be at other points. So that would be kind of my one negative on this team if you did have to point it out. But on the positive side, you have Stankoven, who came into the league last year, put up 14 points in 24 games, and then 8 points in the 19 playoff games. And we're going to get to his Calder odds because I think he's one of the favorites. But Franco, they also have Maverick Bork, and it seems like this team just continually produces young talent.
Yeah, I think Bork has some upside too. We saw like a little bit of him last year. I think he kind of got a few games towards the end of the season, but didn't really do much. But yeah, I don't know. I like Stankoven. I think he's a really good player. He's a little like undersized, I guess. I mean, we'll get to the Calder stuff in a little bit, but my only concern there is kind of that the depth on this team is going to kind of prevent him from getting like top line minutes, and that might kind of stunt him as far as like the guys that are, he's going to be competing with there. One more point I want to bring up on the blue line though is Nils Lundqvist. So he was a guy that they acquired from the Rangers, right? 2 years ago, former first round pick, I believe too. Like at some point they got to kind of take the training wheels off with this guy and kind of like see what they have. I feel like last year he was constantly like in and out of the lineup. Now you don't really have anything blocking him. Like you said, Lyubushkin, like you really want to give him top 4 minutes. I think this opens that door. Even Dumba, like you move, give Lundqvist a shot, see if he can fit into that top 4 and move Lyubushkin down. He can play with Lindell. Lindell's another guy that's kind of like feels like he's more of like a liability at this point in his career. So yeah, I have a little bit of question marks as far as the blue line goes, but I would like to see something out of Lundqvist.
Yeah. Did you guys have anything else to add on this team? I mean, you kind of look at it. We talked about kind of maybe their weakness lies on that blue line, but besides that, they're pretty loaded up and down the lineup.
Yeah,
I agree. And getting to Smith as a backup, it doesn't feel too bad either. Like he's been kind of up and down in his career, but as a backup, he's not too bad.
Wedgwood wasn't terrible last year for this team either. So it's going to be interesting to see how many games does Smith end up playing for them. But before we get into the best and worst case scenario for the Dallas Stars, I'd like to talk to you about our sponsor, BetterHelp. This episode of Expected Bets 4 is brought to you by BetterHelp. Have you ever stopped to think about something new you'd love to learn? As adults, we don't always make the time to learn we used to when we were kids. Kids are constantly exploring and growing, but somewhere along the way, life gets busy and we lose some of that curiosity. What's something you've been wanting to dive into? Maybe it's cooking, picking up a new language, or even figure out your golf game to finally beat your new friend. Just because we're older doesn't mean we have to stop growing. In fact, therapy can help you reconnect with that sense of wonder. It reminds you that your back-to-school moment can happen at any time. Therapy is not just for people who have gone through something major. It's for anyone looking to be the best version of themselves. Therapy can help you learn positive ways to cope with stress, set healthy boundaries, and tackle challenges with more confidence. It's really about giving yourself the tools to thrive and grow, no matter what stage of life you're in. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/THPN today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/THPN. Now back to the show. All right, getting into the best and worst case scenario for the Dallas Stars. Betsky, best case seems like it's Stanley Cup or bust.
Yep, I would have to agree. This is a team that has a very good shot of winning it. I think they've gotten a little unlucky at times, and especially last season. I guess 2 years ago, was it 2 years? No, 2 years ago they had Vegas, right?
2 years ago was Colorado.
No,
Vegas.
Last year they lost to Edmonton in the conference finals. 2 years ago was Vegas in the conference finals. And the year before that was when Ottinger kind of came out as a potential superstar goalie when they I think they lost to Calgary. But it was way closer than expected.
Yeah, that went to 7 games, I think, and they lost in overtime.
Yep. So you kind of feel like this is a team that really, really needs to find a way to make it past the conference finals this season, having been there 2 times in a row. And you look at this roster, and I don't doubt that they can. So yeah, I think not making it to the conference final would be an upset at this point, and I think not making it to the Cup is borderline somewhat upsetting. Obviously, it's very tough to do, but best case scenario, making it to the Stanley Cup final, potentially winning it.
Yeah, we'll get to their odds in a second, but they have the second favorite in the Western Conference final winner. So they're right there next to Edmonton. Franco, worst case, seems like, oddly enough, it's kind of getting back to that conference final and losing again, just for morale-wise. But I think they're going to make the playoffs clearly by their roster, unless everything really worst case scenario and you get a bunch of injuries that pile up on top of each other. And that's probably starting with Ottinger, and DeSmith just can't handle that full-time role. But putting aside injuries, it feels like they make the playoffs and they just get stuck in this loop of being right on the edge and just never being able to kind of get over that hump.
Yeah, it's funny to talk about it like that because, we're all fans of teams that are struggling even to make the playoffs, right?
Best cases, yeah, exactly.
And this is a team that like, oh, man, it would suck if you guys lost in the Western Conference Finals again. But, yeah, I mean, that seems like an expectation at this point to get there and to win this time. So I think worst case would be like if somehow they lose in the first round or something stupid. But this feels like a team destined to be at the top of this division again. And put in another lengthy playoff run. I mean, I feel like overall the top dogs of the West are like not as many as it feels like there have been in the last few years. Some of the bigger teams have gotten a little bit weaker, I guess, and this team still feels pretty damn good. They have at least theoretically a very good goaltender, and maybe this is the year that he kind of like finally figures it out in the playoffs, or maybe not. I mean, it's always the question, right? But I think that's the big thing, right? Is Ottinger the guy? Is he the playoff goaltender for this team? We've seen flashes, but we've also seen a lot of negativity. Bad games, a lot of like high goals against and getting pulled and stuff like that. Like, when do you start to question that? So maybe that's your worst case. You see another year where he isn't a good playoff goaltender, and now you're looking at a guy like Hellebuck where great in season, great during stretches, but just can't get it done when it really matters.
Yeah. Before we get into some team and player futures, I'd like to talk to you about our sponsor, DraftKings. TD, Tutty, taking it to the house. Whatever you call a touchdown, they matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Ready to place your first NFL bet? Try betting on something simple like a player to score a touchdown. The NFL season is back in full swing, and who doesn't love rooting for a touchdown? So be sure to check out the latest odds at DraftKings Sportsbook. Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium. Only at DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in New Hampshire, Oregon, and Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms.
Going off what you just said, Franco, looking at the odds here, getting this team at 11-1 to win the Stanley Cup doesn't seem like a necessarily terrible bet, given that they're plus 550 to win the West, plus 230 to win this division, which also seems like a pretty decent bet in itself. The regular season is 103.5. I think we're probably all going to lay off their odds to make the playoffs, whether it be yes or no. So I'll throw it to you first, Franco. Any of these kind of team props jump out to you? The Stanley Cup at 11-1 seems like it's going to be pretty decent value if they do kind of end up winning this division, and we're expecting them to make a postseason run that's probably going to end up in either the Western Conference Final or the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I think all three look good. Division winner, conference winner, and Stanley Cup. I think they're probably all worth grabbing now. I don't think this is a team that is going to start out slow or anything like that, where you're going to get better number. So, yeah, if you like them, I think you grab any of these now. I still think they're probably the best team in this division, I guess, at this point. So plus 230 feels good. You know, it's a little more than double your money just for them to take it. Really, your only main concern, I guess, is Edmonton at this point for the conference winner. So, again, 550.
Or Vegas, maybe.
Yeah, Vegas. I mean, Colorado's still there too. I'm not like discounting it with teams, but I feel like this team feels deeper than the majority of those teams. Even really Edmonton. Like, Edmonton's depth still is not that good, just because you're allocating so much money to the top. They're so top heavy. So.
And they lost two of their best cheap options to St. Louis.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, man. I mean, I feel like it feels like everything's kind of in place here. You know, we've talked about the weakening of their defense a little bit, but everything else looks really good, and the path doesn't seem as bad. I feel like the Eastern Conference has more teams that can kind of like bully you and beat you up and make that path to the cup a lot more strenuous. This feels a little bit easier, at least on paper right now, than it does in the East.
Yeah, the plus 230 is interesting because the next team behind them, Colorado, at plus 240. But when we talked about Colorado, there's so many question marks whether that can go good basically with this team. Like if they get back kind of a few of their key pieces, yeah, they're certainly a contender at plus 240. But there's also that other option where they don't get them back. Nichushkin doesn't come back. Landeskog doesn't come back. And it just kind of really goes south fast. Nashville, obviously, at plus 340 is kind of improving. They had a nice few offseason additions. But again, I don't know if they, from top to bottom, especially offensively, kind of match up with Dallas in terms of that category. So at plus 230, it seems like a pretty great bet. Obviously, they're the favorite for a reason, and it's kind of short odds, but I don't mind that. Betsky, are you more inclined to kind of go with their division winner or look more ahead in the future, maybe at their conference winner or Stanley Cup odds?
Yeah, I like their division winner as a way to be able to kind of up some units on kind of the way up, if you will, out of these, and then maybe sprinkle a little bit more on some of the teams like Nashville to be a conference winner, or even maybe like Vegas or someone else that you're going to get a little bit spicier odds on if you kind of feel like those teams have a good shot. But man, division winner, yeah, I really like the odds on this. Plus 230, you're getting good value on it. If Colorado puts it all together, I don't think it's going to happen immediately. It's going to take some time to get everybody healthy. I think Nashville may be one of the better teams in the entire league, but it may take a couple months for all the chemistry to develop. So they may be one of those teams that you want to watch out for in the playoffs, but regular season, they're second or third in this division. So I think that's my favorite bet angle here. And I think I would rather take them to win the cup with a little bit of a sprinkle than the conference winner, because I really think this is the type of team that if they are getting out into the cup finals, that means they're getting much better goaltending from Ottinger. The team is healthy. The depth is too much for other teams to handle. And at that point, I would much rather have Dallas over just about anybody in the East outside of maybe the Rangers.
Yeah. You wonder if they end up winning the Central Division, those conference winner odds are probably going to drop to maybe 2-1.
Yeah.
If Edmonton wins the Pacific and they win the Central, the conference is probably going to be cut in half, if not more.
I also think there's a better chance for some random team in the East to make a run than I do in the West.
Yeah.
Kind of like how Florida, I guess they won the President Trophy the season before it, but Florida kind of came out of nowhere when they made the Cup Finals against Vegas, right? They beat Boston, who had the best NHL season of all time. Yep. And then, people in Toronto were cheering for them to be matched against them, and they lost it. So I think in the East, that feels like there's a better chance for, even like, we talked about Jersey making a big run or some random team doing it, where in the West, I feel like you're really talking about the four pillars of Vegas, Edmonton, Dallas, and Colorado being the ones that can actually do it. And those are all kind of at different varying levels of degree. So I think if any of four of those teams make it to the Stanley Cup final, they probably have a better shot to win it than any team in the East outside of the Rangers.
Yeah,
just my opinion. Maybe Florida can repeat, but I have a feeling Florida's going to have a little bit of regression this season.
It seems like there's maybe 5 or 6 contenders in the West, whereas the East you have kind of 7 or 8 that can make that jump. So getting a division winner at plus 230 seems like a pretty good bet.
Yeah.
Moving along to some player point props. Stankoven at 45.5, Heiskanen at 59.5, Hintz at 72.5, and Wyatt Johnston at 78.5 for points. And in terms of goals, you have Johnston at 36.5 and Rupe Hintz at 32.5. Some interesting lines there, especially for Stankoven, which seems like it could be the theme of the player prop market, with him listed at plus 650 to win the Calder. I think we've mentioned it on a few other teams, but that seems like a hell of a bet too. Sticking with the player points and goals prop, Franco, did you have any that you kind of liked for this team?
Yeah, I'll probably look at Johnston just because he at least is projected as of now to be on that top line. Obviously, they're not giving us Robertson props because of his injury concern in camp, but I think everything I've been reading is that he'll be ready for the regular season. Yeah, I mean, he's going to be on line with Hintz and Robertson. That looks fantastic for Wyatt Johnston. He'll probably be on the top power play this year, because you lose a guy like Pavelski, who kind of was always just a de facto guy on that top power play.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like sometimes they move Sagan on it and stuff like that, Duchesne as well. I think Johnston is going to be a mainstay on that top power play, and at least the top 2 lines if they do shift a little bit. So 70.5 is a little high, I guess, but I think he takes another step. I think that's really what it comes down to, right? Like, he showed flashes of just being really, really good last year. Stankoven, I'll probably stay off. I'd be more interested to see like where he ends up, like game to game. If he gets bumped up in the lineup, as of now, again, he's on the 3rd line on daily faceoff. But if he's on the 2nd or 1st line, or if that 3rd line gets hot like it did last year, then I'd be looking at his props like game to game rather than trying to grab him for the season long. So that's probably where I end up.
Yeah. And with the smaller guys, you always have to worry about a little bit of regression. So he had a small sample size. That's not an 82-game season. So,
yeah.
Heiskanen at 59.5 is interesting as well, because he's only gone over that total once in his career.
Yeah.
Last season, he had 54. In the year prior, he had 73. Seems a little high, doesn't it?
It does ish.
It's going to be a sweaty one. It's not like one where you're fully backing, but it seems like it's a little priced on the high side. He's only played 82 games once in his career. So you're also kind of banking on injuries. Last season, he had 54 with 71 games played, and then the year prior, 79 games played with 73 points. So if he stays healthy, it seems like it has a good chance of probably going over, given his production the past 2 seasons. But he, like I said before, he hasn't completed a full season in the past, 5 years?
I'll make another argument to not take it. Actually, I had to kind of think through all that because I did not realize he had a 73-point season. That's insane, and that's why his Norris odds were so good. Where he was a
last
top
year.
5 Norris.
Yeah,
going into last year, it really felt like he was a solid kind of sneaky-ish pick if you didn't want to take McCarr or Fox. But with Thomas Harley emerging, does he potentially take over as the top power play unit option for the defense? I would say he's just as dangerous. I feel like I'm going to be making some big, bold statement that people are going to cut and come after me for, but
flip it.
Yeah. I mean, if Harley starts to show on the second power play unit, does it become something where they want to ease Heiskanen's minutes a little bit and give a little bit more opportunity for Harley on that top unit? There's a lot of questions in my mind. And they were playing together at some points. So that could be one of those things where Heiskanen actually is the anchor on that line and Harley's the one kind of driving the puck and getting the points with the secondary assist or primary assist too. So I don't love Heiskanen's points because of that. And I don't love his Norris odds because of that.
Yeah. I was looking at Wyatt Johnston goals at 36.5. He had 32 last year. Yep. That seems like a pretty good bet too. The points is interesting as well, but 36.5 goals feels like he gets there. Rupe Hintz has gone over his. Oh, so go ahead.
Go for it. That's exactly what I was going to talk about.
I was saying Rupe Hintz at 32.5. He's hit in 2 of the past 3 years. Didn't hit last year, but again, I think that's a stay away from me unless you had a strong conviction. Either way, I'd maybe lean even under.
It's all about health with Rupe Hintz, man. He's always in and out of the lineup. It's tough.
I also think there's a world where Hintz starts centering the second line and Wyatt centers the top line with Robertson and let's say Sagan or Ben or something like that, or Stankoven even. Hintz, I know, is a really important piece to this team. I know he's one of the most underappreciated centers in the league. It seemed like last year they were more concerned with his 2A game and being that responsible center for them and allowing the scoring to kind of come up and down the lineup, where 2 seasons ago it felt more like that top unit or line of Robertson, Hintz, and Pavelski carried most of the offensive weight with a little bit of depth scoring from Sagan and Ben at times. I think because of that, I'm a little concerned about taking his points or goal. And not saying that he's going to take a step back or anything. He just may have a little bit different role. And like we saw last season, they had 3 lines that can score now.
Yeah, and the depth really didn't go anywhere, offensively speaking. But the loss of Pavelski obviously hurts. But yeah, pretty much besides that, it remains intact. It's interesting too. We talked about this team, and we're pretty high on them, right? Yeah, we're looking at unders for player props. While some of these teams that we don't expect to even make the playoffs, we're taking overs on their player props. So
there's very few numbers I want to take on Robertson. I think Robertson's going to have a huge season. I feel like last year he was a little bit quiet, and I feel like this is, again, with
last
the
year, 80 points in 82 games, which was
that's a quietly good season.
Yeah, I mean 78 3 seasons ago, 2 seasons
109 2 seasons ago. Holy
that was a monster. Yeah, monster season.
So again, I
think
think
he was scoring every game that year.
He started off slow too to begin the season, if I remember correctly, and then kind of got things going as the season progressed. But yeah, you wonder if his point total, if I had to guess, it'd probably be 89.5, 90 to 92.5.
I think especially if he misses a game or two, you may be getting this thing at like 86.
Oh, anything under 90.
He only had 8. You think? Yeah, anything under 90.
Anything under 90, you're taking. Yeah.
Anything under 91.5, I'm taking.
Yeah, I like that.
I think he can easily have another 90-point season.
Yeah. Moving along to some of the trophies, Stankoven, Betsky, I think you wrote about him for the Calder at plus 650. obviously just under that cut of 25 games. So he's already shown what he's capable of. I think it's a fantastic bet, especially at those odds. There's a ton of talent in this upcoming rookie class. So it is going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But getting someone who's already played that amount of games and has shown that he is legitimate NHL talent, I think is a huge steal.
On a top 5 offense in the league too.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that. I would say even the Bork option is decent too at plus 3,000. I mean, we don't know where these guys are going to end up. And that picture I was painting, if Wyatt Johnson takes over centering the top line, there's a world where everything kind of moves around a little bit. I mean, I could see both him and Stankoven potentially being on that second line, or Stankoven being on the top line if Johnson takes over center at the top line, and then Hintz is on the second line with Duchesne and Marshman or something like that. So I don't know. Both of those players, obviously, I think Stankoven's the better bet here, the much less risky one. That's like the type of bet that I want to kind of. I feel like the Calder is the trophy to place multiple bets on this season. There's a couple options that you're getting good value on.
It's the most exciting.
Yes. It's a crazy
by far
amount of
exciting. A lot of talent. Yep. There's a lot
Mishkov,
of talent.
Lane Hudson, Stankoven, Celebrini, Will Smith. And we'll get into some of those guys later.
And guys in good spots too. Like,
yep.
Will Smith and Celebrini are in great spots. They're going to get a ton of minutes. Gauthier is going to get a ton of minutes. Like, you can make arguments for a lot of these guys that, like, I mean, even Askarov, like, goalies usually is harder for. But again, like, you're talking about guys like Askarov's going to play like 50 games. Like,
but how many is going to win?
I know. It's hard. But I mean, you never know with these guys, man. Like, if he's just that good, like, these guys are going to be put in the roles where they're going to play a ton of minutes. And even if Stankoven's starting on the third line, like, he could get into a situation where he plays more minutes. I mean, Sagan could get hurt again. Like, he missed time last year. Both him and Duchesne are up there in age. So as of now, like, I'm a little bit more cold on Stankoven than some of the other guys, just because, if he's on the third line, and I think this team is going to be like, scoring is going to be kind of coming from everywhere on this team. Like, it could be a little less than these guys like Gauthier and Celebrini and Mishkov and Smith, that, like, they're going to play top power play. They're going to play tons of minutes every night. Like, he might be in more of a negative situation just because of how good this team is. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, true. But one thing he has over San Jose and potentially the Ducks here is a better offense. So
yes,
Leo Carlson, how many points did he put up last season? Not much.
Yeah.
Same with Fantilli until he got hurt.
And he has the experience too already. So that's a big bonus. Like, these guys haven't really skated against real NHL players yet. So
played in the playoffs too.
Yes. He's
Leo Carlson. Carlson had 29 points, 12 goals last season with 55 games, though.
Yeah, he missed a ton of games.
The Ducks even have?
Yeah, I forgot he.
So how many goals did the Ducks even have in general?
He may have been a top 5 guy on that team last year. Yeah, God.
Yeah, they struggled, and they kept pulling him. Like, it was like load management or some crap like that. I don't know what that was. Like,
I guess what I'm saying though is there's a world where that happens to somebody like Celebrini or Will Smith too, where the guy's just not figuring it out, but you want to play him because you draft him so high, you want to get him adapted, but the team's not very good. And that, I guess that's why I like a guy like Stankoven, where it feels like you're getting really nice odds on something that there may be a little. His worst factor going into the season right now is that he's listed on the third line, but you never know if he stays there or if
and he's going to stay on the team as well. Like some of these, I mean, I don't think Celebrini is getting sent down or anything like that, but some of these other more fringe guys could lose minutes or get sent down as well.
That's also
Mishkov may get deported from Trotz. You never know.
It's an interesting point too you bring up about Carlson, right? The load management factor, because it's an interesting argument, because if he is kind of struggling to keep up, whether it be endurance wise or just kind of becoming accustomed to the NHL, there's no reason in pushing him, right? The Ducks have no expectations this year or even for the next 2 to 3 years. So why try to ruin your rookie for like one of your top draft picks in the first season? And obviously, I think San Jose may be in a similar boat, but I doubt they would do that to Celebrini, maybe Will Smith. But it is an option. It could be kind of the new way of thinking of, you see with the NFL, like if a team's down by 20 in the fourth quarter and they have a star quarterback, they're not playing him. They're like, the game's already pretty much lost. Like there's no reason of trotting him back out there to get hurt or ruin his confidence by any means. There's also something, Betsky, you mentioned, Rupe Hintz becoming more of a two-way forward, 12-1 to win the Selke. That and Ottinger at 11-1 to win the Vezina.
Yeah.
Those are the two bets that really jump out to me with this team.
I love both of those. I really like that Selke one too. Talk about a guy who's just seemingly beloved by the league and doesn't quite get the same respect. Feels very Barkov-y.
Plus minus, check. Like over 50 points, check. Face-off percentage, check. Center, check. Like he already meets the criteria for the past 5 or 6 seasons to win this award, and now you're getting him at 12-1 on a top 5 team where the Selkies primarily come from moving forward. It seems like everything's lining up for him to make a run, and it's also a pretty great hedging opportunity if he does become one of these legitimate contenders. While I don't know if the Selke market opens mid-season or towards the end, I don't think it does, quite like the Rocket Richard or Out Ross or even the Norris. 12-1 seems like you're going to be kind of in action come the later half of the season, at least.
I am placing it now.
Yeah, he should be in contention no matter what. And then, if Barkov misses time, like Barkov missed some time last year with some weird injury stuff. So, I mean, they're placing the odds as if he's too. Yeah, and they're placing the odds on Barkov as if it's like a foregone conclusion. I mean, no player should be, what was he, like plus 150 or something ridiculous?
He's plus 150. Austin Matthews plus 750, and then Hintz is tied with Hischier at 1,200.
Yeah, I mean, I really like that. I like that play a lot.
12-1 for the third favorite is pretty incredible odds, especially if Barkov opened at plus 135. Now he's up to plus 150. So they kind of realized a little bit overreaction in the market to begin with of basically giving him the award to start the season, which is crazy. In an award that the guidelines are so broad. Like I really think Rupe Hintz at 12-1. Hischier's obviously a decent contender, but
I don't.
Matthews at plus 7
has injury concerns.
Matthews at plus 750. I don't know if I take either.
No, I want to take.
I wouldn't take
Matthews.
No, you could almost. Yeah, I mean, you could take Hintz at 12-1 and Barkov at plus 150. Split your units up accordingly, and it feels like you kind of have a pretty good stranglehold on that market to begin with.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yep.
Vezina at Ottinger at 11-1. Shesterkin, Hellebuck, Swayman, Saros are all ahead of him. He's tied with Markstrom at plus 1,100. And Vasi is also at 11-1. Vasi would probably be my other top pick in that 11-1 range. But again, Ottinger, Dallas is such a more complete team than it feels like Tampa Bay is, who's getting a little bit older. And I don't know, I just trust Dallas more in that category to at least provide some additional support for him.
Yeah, and if he figures it out, like we said, I mean, he's shown flashes of like really, really like brilliance at this point in his young career. Like he could still get better than he has been. It's been a little up and down with Ottinger, but 1,100 feels pretty darn good to throw a little piece in there and grab it now. And if he starts out like fantastic, like Hellebuck did last year, it felt like nobody was catching Hellebuck just because of how good he started the season. So, and this is a team in front of it, like he's going to get the wins. So that's done. You just need him to stand on his head a little bit, and any goalie can do that any year. He has the talent to do it.
And I think you're getting extra value because he's young and he's been questionable in the playoffs. And
that's exactly what I was going to bring up, was the question marks from his goaltending have not come during the regular season. It's come during the postseason. And last year we saw Hellebuck kind of shit the bed in the postseason. It still doesn't matter, right?
Yep.
So 11-1. I really like that as well. Any other bets you guys are considering for this team before we wrap up here?
Not me.
No, I think that we pretty much got them.
It's going to be a fun team to watch again.
The craziest market to me, just before we close out here, is DeBoer to win the Jack Adams at 22-1. Even if the Stars win the Cup, I still don't think he wins it, right? Like, there's no world where he would win it.
The team in front of him is too talented, right? Like, I feel like it's like a negative about the coach. Like,
yeah,
as talented as a team is, like, the coach still needs to get everything out. I mean, he still needs to put the best pieces together and make it work and win games. Like, but I feel like in general, a coach doesn't get credit when that happens. It's more given to a guy that like comes in the season with no expectations and, you know, produces a magical run or something like that. So I think he's hard pressed, even at that nice price, to get it.
I would rather take them to win the President's Trophy at plus 950.
Oh, by far.
Yeah,
because their ceiling's already so high. Their ceiling's to win the Stanley Cup. Like, you can't really exceed expectations by that much when you've made the Western Conference Final the past 2 seasons. So that's kind of crazy. All right. Well, we appreciate everyone for listening to this episode of Expected Bets 4. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube so you never miss an episode. And also check out our social media on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube as well. Thank you again to our wonderful sponsors, DraftKings and BetterHelp. We appreciate everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you guys soon.